Halftime show. Terry Ford, glad you could be hanging out. Tyler will be back in a little bit. Going upstairs, we're doing a little 19th floor luncheon today for the staff. So Tyler's up there. Send Dave Adair up there because I told Dave there's free food, so Dave will definitely join in. So we're going to hang here. I'm going to do something really dangerous. If you see it on the video stream, I'm actually going to talk and punch buttons, and so I'm basically going to turn this thing right off the road, down the ravine, and have it probably explode at the bottom of the ravine. So we're going to hang out here. You can see us on the video stream. Hey, what's up? How you doing? As we go until Tyler gets back in here after hanging out there at the cool luncheon. Well, because, not to go behind the curtain and bore you too much, but, it's a weird setup here. We've got our offices on the 19th floor of the Bank of America building on Gervais, and our studios are on the first floor, which is a little weird. But for space reasons, we do it, blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, so that's what we're doing right now. So we got 19th floor, big office thing. First floor, we're going to sit out here and yap and do the show, and we'll get Tyler back here in a little bit. And I know we might not ever get Dave off the 19th floor because, again, there's free food. All right, so we have a transfer portal news update, and they probably talked. If you didn't hear it, because it popped on Gamecock Central, obviously, they were talking about it. Sidney Fugar, offensive tackle, going into the portal. Not a surprise, not a shock. Fugar wants to play, and playing time is probably not going to be available here at South Carolina. So Sidney Fugar will go in the portal and move on to find a place where he can get some run. Look, Sidney Fugar was a project last year. Remember, wasn't supposed to play, came from a lower-level school, and really was supposed to develop and learn, and this was going to kind of be really was going to be a developmental year for Sidney Fugar. The injuries happened. Fugar had to get on the field. I believe started 3 games. Mixed results. Again, the guy wasn't ready to play. And when you're asking a guy that really isn't ready to play to go start at tackle in the SEC, that's a large ask, man. It just really is. And so, Sidney Fugar, it was tough. And now you look at the way the offensive line room is set up. Josiah Thompson comes in, 5-star freshman tackle. Kason Henry is healthy. There's a lot of people now in front of Sidney Fugar. And so Sidney Fugar is like, I need to go somewhere where I can have a better chance to play, which totally understand that. Absolutely. So that's kind of the deal with Sidney Fugar. And, Shane Beamer was discussing a lot of different things. Welcome home in the Midlands, doing his tour. And Shane brought up the transfer portal before Sidney Fugar said he was going to go in. And here's what Shane Beamer said about possible transfers from the Gamecock football program.
Yeah, a couple of guys that weren't necessarily surprises, but a couple that I think are going to explore that route. Just the opportunity to play more. I'll let them announce that or put their name in the portal whenever they're ready to. But kind of expect that at the end of the spring. And again, you want guys to have good experiences and good opportunities. And if that means going somewhere where you can play a little bit more, certainly wish those guys well. And all of them have been honest and positive conversations.
So, yeah, Shane expected a few guys to hit the portal. Obviously, Sidney Fugar probably one of them. There'll be other dudes who, are not where they like to be on the depth chart and they want to move on. Like Shane said, if it's someone who was going to get significant playing time, that would shock the coach. But you're going to get a few guys that, maybe last year they were with the 2s, now they're with the 3s. And they want to go and, find snaps or find starting opportunities or just get more playing time. And Sidney Fugar is the first man up for that. Does not surprise anyone. So Sidney Fugar hitting the portal to move forward. Again, the offensive line room is stacked. Shane even said that they'd like to add one more through the portal just for numbers. But in a perfect world, would add one more. But Sidney Fugar will be moving along as he's hit the transfer portal. Now, what's South Carolina going to do on their side, getting players in from the portal? if you said, Tara, you can only bring in one position, one player at one position, where would you go? I mean, and I think a lot of folks would say at wide receiver. Tall guy, gets like 6'2", 6'3", jump ball type of guy, large catch radius type of guy, make plays down the field type of guy. Now, good luck with that because, first of all, those kind of players, teams don't want to go in the portal. So they're, those guys just aren't flying around available. Two, if a guy like that does hit the portal, I think more than just South Carolina's going to want him. So it's going to be a competition. I feel like if you do get a wide receiver from the portal, it's going to be a guy who is, again, not happy with his spot on the depth chart after the spring, has shown the ability to make some plays down the field, but maybe his numbers don't wow you because he's just not getting enough opportunity, but the potential is there. I feel like that's the kind of guy you would most likely pull at wide receiver from the portal, especially like 6'2", 6'3". Wes and Chris, and off the top of my head, I'll get the article back up, or the post. They were talking about some of the transfer portal wide receivers that South Carolina might have their eye on. They're all 6'2", 6'3". Because that's really where the Gamecocks are zeroing in on. I mean, you saw the spring game. You got a lot of guys between like 5'10" and 6', 6'1", who are, on the, I shouldn't say small, but height-wise on the smaller side. So you'd love to get more of a taller wideout who can, win the jump ball game down the field or as a red zone target. A guy that you can throw that deep sideline route to who can, make a play. It's tougher to throw that route to the shorter guys. Their catch radius is smaller. If you go by analytics, the degree of percentage of completing that is lower. And so it'd be good to have a tall dude who you can throw it up to. So, hey, man, go get that thing. So we'll see where that goes. And Shane also said, maybe get an offensive lineman to add to depth. But we'll keep an eyeball on what South Carolina does and who does leave. And right now, Sidney Fugar is the first dude on the list who is going to peace out to go find more playing time. Glad you can hang out with us as we, take a look at still, I guess, remnants after the spring game on Saturday. And, where some things stand. The transfer portal obviously is a big thing. We got some Gamecock men's basketball transfer portal news to get into. No one's showing up, but there's some guys in South Carolina sniffing around the portal that we'll get into as well. Tyler, I want to give him full credit. Tyler put up a Twitter poll, Twitter X, sorry X, didn't mean to offend you, Twitter X poll yesterday. Got about 4 hours left in it. I find it interesting. Tyler on the poll said, in terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? 4, very relevant. I mean, first of all, number 1, very relevant. Number 2, moderately relevant. I'll try to be able to speak. Moderately relevant. 3, somewhat relevant. 4, irrelevant. Now, we got a lot of run on this. Over 3,000 people have viewed it. Almost 650 votes. Feel free to go check it out. Again, in terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? Very relevant. Moderately, I can't say the word. Wow. I can't say moderately. I've lost my mind. Somewhat relevant or irrelevant. Those are the 4 choices. Right now, somewhat relevant is ahead at 43%. Irrelevant is 34%. That kind of surprises me. Moderately, I can't say the word. What is wrong with me? That word that begins with an M, relevant, is 19%, and very relevant is 4%. That's where we're at. Am I surprised? Not by number 1, somewhat relevant. I'm surprised that 34% of the people think the football program they cheer for is irrelevant. That does surprise me. That really does. We've had some comments about it we're going to get to here in a few minutes. And I'll give you my thoughts as well. I am surprised by that. That big of a percentage thinks that the South Carolina football program is irrelevant. So we're going to have a discussion on that. And also look at some comments. And feel free to hit us up 803-404-6100 on the text line. And we'll throw those in our Firehouse subtext of the hour as well. But yeah, that did kind of catch me. Tyler came up. I didn't see it yesterday. did not get a chance to check our Twitter poll situation. And Tyler told me this morning he did it, and then he started reading off the numbers to me. I'm like, wow, it's fantastic. There's 4 hours left to still vote, view, comment, feel free. But we're going to focus on that in our next segment. The Twitter poll we did about how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now. Also, we got baseball coming up Friday, Saturday, Sunday here on the game in Columbia and Myrtle Beach. 6:45 on Friday, Kentucky rolling in, big series in the SEC for the Gamecocks. 6:45 pregame there. Our coverage starts Saturday, Gamecocks and Wildcats. 3:45, then 1:45. Everything gets underway with the pregame again on Sunday versus Kentucky. So that is 6:45 Friday, 3:45 Saturday, 1:45 Sunday. Carolina baseball versus Kentucky here on the game in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach. And if you're hanging out with us here in Columbia or in Florence or Myrtle Beach, we appreciate you. We will come back and take a look at this Twitter X poll about how relevant the South Carolina football program is in your eyes, the South Carolina Gamecock football fan. We'll check into that next. Halftime show, Terry Ford rolling this sucker solo till Tyler and Dave finish eating. And then they'll come downstairs and we'll get it cooking even hotter, I guess, here on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford Ledge going to be hanging. Tyler will be back in a little bit. Upstairs, we're doing a little luncheon upstairs. Thanks to our friends at Substation 2. I sampled all the subs on the way over. I took our account executive, Jeff Haley, to go pick up the food. And so Jeff and I, just to make sure it was as good as usual, took a bite out of every sub. And it's damn fine food. So Tyler's up there eating, and Dave is too, because we told Dave that we were having a luncheon with nothing but honey buns. So they'll be back down here in a little bit. But right now we're just rolling solo here on the halftime show on the game in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach. Thanks for spending time with us. Shane Beamer was doing another trip on the Welcome Home tour. And yesterday, or last night, I should say, we played a cut about, Shane expecting transfers. If you haven't heard, Sidney Fugar, offensive tackle, has entered the transfer portal. Shane talks about the exit interviews that he's doing with all the players at the end of the spring.
They've been good. I've knocked out 80, 40 yesterday, 40 today. Just had my last one at 5 o'clock today. They've been good. Those are very much just kind of any issues that I need to be aware of, talking academics, strengths, areas to improve, what's your plan this summer, how are we going to get better, here's your role right now. So those are a lot of things. Some of them are a little bit longer than others, but they've been productive and, open and honest communication with guys and where they stand.
To me, in this world we live in now, you just got to be transparent. Say, look, here's where you're at. Love to see you stay, but if you go, I understand. And so far with Sidney Fugar today, you had Kelton Henderson, the wide receiver, Jackson Hughes, offensive lineman, and also Trell Dawkins. So far, 4 in the portal leaving South Carolina. None of them really were, oh, geez, can't lose that guy type of players. And it feels like you're not going to have like one of your vital pieces hit the portal. You never know till you know, right? But that's the way it feels. And we'll see who South Carolina might bring in moving forward. All right, we talked about this going to the break. Very interesting. We put up a Twitter X poll, I should say Tyler did. Great idea by him, this question. And the Twitter X poll that Tyler put up yesterday, it's got a little bit under 4 hours left. In terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? Very relevant. I'm going to try this word again. Moderately relevant. Somewhat relevant, irrelevant. And right now, somewhat relevant leads away at 43%. That doesn't surprise me. But irrelevant at 34%, that does kind of make me go, didn't see that coming. I thought moderately relevant would be second. Or maybe first, and it's sitting in a distant third. 77% of the folks voting look at the South Carolina football program right now as either somewhat relevant or irrelevant. That's interesting. If I'm answering this, I'm probably going to somewhat. I don't think the program's irrelevant because I feel like programs like Vanderbilt are irrelevant. They never win, or they very small window where they actually had winning records. Besides that, you look at them as a W on your schedule. I feel like that is what you're looking at. Or, before this recent run of success, I looked at Duke football like that for a long time. David Cutcliffe got them going again. They started having winning records, going to bowl games. You saw what Mike Elko did. But before David Cutcliffe got them, to where they were a solid program, they really hadn't been consistently worth mentioning since the ball coach left to go to Florida. So that's the kind of programs. Kansas for years was irrelevant. That's what I look at when we talk about irrelevant programs. Cal, since Aaron Rodgers was there, Cal's been irrelevant. So I don't think South Carolina's irrelevant. I think I would go, if I'm going to be fair and objective, somewhat relevant, probably be what I vote for. Had a good run with Steve Spurrier. 2 years ago, the Gator Bowl trip, knocking off Clemson and Tennessee. I think there is a relevancy to the program. I don't think it's irrelevant. But that's just me. You go whichever way you want. We got some comments in here we'll get to. Can't make a bowl game when everyone else makes a bowl game. Or no, I'm sorry. Can't make a bowl game when everyone makes a bowl game. Not relevant. Also, sadly, we are irrelevant. Another off of Twitter X. Sad when 80% feel as if the program is in the shape that it's in. Beamer better get on the ball. This wait till next year has gotten old. Men's and women's hoops has taken off for sure. Beamer talks and talks, need results. Then, doesn't matter how anyone feels, the fact the program is totally irrelevant nationally. Has always been, except for a few brief moments, very brief. So we have some folks who are going down the irrelevant road. Again, everybody's got their own opinion. Nobody's right, nobody's wrong, it's just your opinion. So that's where it's at right now. Your thoughts, feel free, 803-404-6100. Phone line, text line. We'll get them in on the Firehouse subtext of the hour if you want to pop them in on our text line. But again, I would say, to be fair, I would go somewhat relevant, because there has been pockets and moments even 2 years ago. I mean, those back-to-back wins were, it's not an every week occurrence or every couple week occurrence that a team that's unranked knocks off two top 10 ranked teams who have college football playoff aspirations. Doesn't happen all the time. So that's just me. That's where I would vote if I was voting. But you feel free to get in. Again, we're over 650 votes, almost 3,500 views. Still have about 3 hours and 49 minutes left. So feel free to jump in there and hit that. All right, the NFL draft is coming up, obviously. Mel Kiper did his big board, right, where he rates like the top 10 at every position. I think he's got the top 100, and that'll expand. Scouts, Inc. does a big, gigantic, like top 300. But Mel has his top 100. He's also got the top 10 at each position. Yes, there are Gamecocks in there. Yes. Xavier Legette is right at number 32. And obviously there's 32 teams. So Xavier Legette is right on that line of first-round pick. And I still think Legette can land somewhere between 28 and 32 in the first round or go in the second round. The good news for Legette, not only if you do get drafted in the first round as well, you're a first-round pick. Get an extra year on your deal, all sorts of good stuff. And second, you don't fall in the second round where a lot of people think the Panthers would take you. Yuck. If you're Legette, you got everybody in the house. If you're going to do it at home, have a little party. Maybe you let the cameras come in. And then you get drafted by the Panthers. And you've got to stop yourself from crying uncontrollably. Not of happiness, but, oh, my God, the Panthers drafted me. Oh, God, this is awful. And then look up and smile. And then act like you're excited. Because you're a second-round pick in the NFL draft, but you're taken by the dumpster fire up north with an awful owner. So Legette, again, is on that line at 32. Spencer Rattler's at 99, which is, right around third round. He's on that cusp of third, fourth round. I think Rattler goes in the third round. I've been saying this for weeks. I just believe that's the sweet spot for Spencer Rattler. And we've seen Rams, which would be a good landing spot with Sean McVay. We've seen Broncos be a good landing spot there as well with Sean Payton. The Rams especially, you get to sit like a year or two, hang out with Matthew Stafford. Of course, he can't relate to you because you're young and he's old. That was a great story last year. But, you get to go somewhere, and Sean McVay's great with quarterbacks. Look what he did for Jared Goff. Look what he's done for Matthew Stafford, even though Matthew Stafford's a veteran. So that would be a fantastic landing spot for Spencer Rattler with the Rams. Then in a year or two, you get your shot. The Broncos with Sean Payton would be good. Right now, the thing that would concern me, because I think Rattler needs to sit here and just sit, develop, learn, get coached up by some, like with Payton or McVay and those staffs, some high-level offensive cats. But you go to Denver, there's not a Matthew Stafford there, obviously. There's not a Matthew Modine. No. There's not anyone there that's that guy like Matthew Stafford with the Rams. So you might get rushed in before you're ready. That would be the concern. I do. I think Spencer needs some time, but I do believe in the right situation with the right staff, the right coach, and the right system, with everything put together the way it should be. I think Rattler could be a starting quarterback in the NFL. It's there, man. You watched it. The arm talent's there. Got much better at less gunslinging and more smart decisions last year with Dow Long. It shows you he's coachable. Off the field, checked all the boxes here for 2 years. I think in the right spot, Rattler's going to have a shot. But it's got to be you can't ask Bryce Young about landing in the right spot, and ask C.J. Stroud about landing in the right spot. So we'll see where that goes. Spencer Rattler, 99 on Mel Kiper's big board. Marcellus Dial didn't make the big board, but Marcellus Dial is a 29th ranked corner on Mel Kiper's big board with positional breakdown. Marcellus Dial, 29th rated corner. I mean, could Dial be a day 3 pick? Sure. Or either a day 3 pick or he'll be, a rookie free agent, free to sign wherever he wants. And sometimes that's better. Look, everybody wants to hear their name. I get it. But once you get to the 7th round, certain players are probably better off if they're not drafted and they get to pick which team they can go to, which might have a weakness at the position they play. So we'll see what happens for Marcellus Dial, but ranked 29th. 29th rated corner on Mel Kiper's big board. And, of course, the draft is tomorrow night. I can't wait. I'm a huge draft dork. I love it. I'm the goober watching the 7th round. I am. I profess I love it. I do. $1,000. You like money? You love money? I love the draft. You love money? I love money, too. You can go to 1075thegame.com, register for the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. $1,000 now the pot is up to. So if a Gamecock hits a Grand Slam, the next day we're on the air, next weekday, the early game at 7:30, we'll pick a winner, but you got to qualify. You register by going to 1075thegame.com. You fill out the little entry form, and then good luck. It's from Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union, our Grand Slam giveaway. Let's come back in here. We'll get back to some more Shane Beamer sound at the welcome home. He'll talk about Bam Martin Scott and how much that linebacker's grown. That's next on the halftime show. Terry Ford in the game. Halftime show. We're cooking this sucker up until 3 on the game. Terry Ford Ledge going to be hanging. What we're talking about, Carolina football. Bunch of different topics with the Gamecocks. One, Sidney Fugar, offensive lineman, transferring, going into the transfer portal. Not a surprise, not a shock. Fugar, probably falling down a bit on the depth chart when you see the, influx of either freshman offensive lineman, transfer portal offensive lineman. Fugar is like, I probably want to go somewhere where I can play more. So Sidney Fugar in the transfer portal. Second offensive lineman, Jackson Hughes went in. Remember, preferred walk-on to start the year. I believe coming from Charlotte, if my memory serves me. Usually doesn't anymore. But Jackson Hughes also in the transfer portal, along with Terrell Dawkins, defensive lineman, and Kelton Henderson, wide receiver. So we've been talking about that today. A little bit about the Gamecocks in the NFL draft, where Xavier Legette, Spencer Rattler, and Marcellus Dow sit on Mel Kiper's big board. Also, our Twitter X poll, which has gained a ton of traction. And we're going to get more of your thoughts on it during the show. In terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? A, very relevant. B, moderately relevant. Man, that word's killing me. It's just, the word that kills me when I do radio? The word selection. I can say selection all day long. I used to have to do radio, read commercials back in the old days. And I say selection. It would drive me nuts. It's in every, used to be in every car ad. And I'd always screw it up. It'd take me 50 takes, 2 hours. I couldn't say selection. And now I can't say moderately. Oh, I did it just now. Look at that. The other ones besides moderately, I did it again, moderately relevant and very relevant, somewhat relevant, and irrelevant. Right now, somewhat relevant leaves away at 43%, irrelevant at 34%. We've gotten almost 670 votes, got about 3.5 hours left, so please hit that. I give you my thoughts in the last segment. If I was voting, I'd say somewhat relevant. And it could be a lot more relevant as time goes on. But 34% irrelevant, that did surprise me. So we're talking about that. And like I said, we'll try to get some of your thoughts on the text line, the Firehouse Subtext, the hour coming up. Also, you can hit us up on the phone line, 803-404-6100. Shane Beamer rolling part of that Welcome Home tour again last night. Shane talking about a variety of different things. One was Bam Martin Scott and the growth of Scott from last year at the end of last season when Scott just started popping.
He's everything that we want in this program. He's humble, he's hardworking, he's steady, he's consistent. We don't sit in there as a staff and decide on the awards. The offensive staff decides on their guy, the defensive staff decides on their guy, the special team staff decides on their guy. Then we get together as a staff and talk about who they want, and then I have the final say if I disagree with any of it. But Jody came in there and said DQ Smith. Clayton and the defensive staff came in there and said DQ Smith, and he earned it. And it's just because of his consistency and how he does things day in, day out.
Okay, so that was about DQ Smith, not Bam Martin Scott. Okay. I shouldn't let me in this room. Really shouldn't. I should not be punching buttons. We'll get to Bam Martin Scott in a minute. DQ Smith, yeah, if you missed it at the spring game, DQ Smith was named Outstanding Special Teamer from the spring practice session and also Outstanding Defensive Player from the spring practice session. And Shane was explaining it, the folks from the offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball, and special teams will come to, Shane, the coaching staffs and say, okay, here's who we're putting up there. And DQ Smith, look, as a freshman, was a huge surprise, remember? Was a starter, did a really nice job at safety. Last year, was asked to do more in coverage. And, again, DQ had, some inconsistencies in coverage. I mean, a guy that his MO, playing the run. It was not a safety in high school. So there's been a learning curve for DQ Smith. Hopefully the learning curve continues in year 3. And DQ's even talked about having to get better in coverage, as is Nick Amenwari and Jalen Kilgore. All 3 safeties have talked about, I got to get better in coverage. But DQ Smith in the spring, named outstanding special teamer and outstanding defensive player in the spring practice session. And now the Bam Martin Scott, would have thought that's what I was playing. You know, Bam Martin Scott had also, we have heard, has had a good spring. And Bam Martin Scott had talked about how his success in the last month of the season really pushed him in this offseason with confidence. And he feels good about where his game is. And what he did on the field in November has just made him feel so much more, puffy chest about his abilities. So, Bam Martin Scott, the linebacker position is, to me, so much better and so much deeper than the previous 2 years where I've been here. With Demetrius Knight, who had, he had 3 tackles early in the spring game. Bengali Kamara made a couple of plays in the spring game as well. You got Bam Martin Scott. You got Willis last year, who also started popping once South Carolina went to that 3-3-5 alignment. And then obviously you got Debo Williams. You got some real depth. And the 2 freshmen, Johnson and Gregory. So you really have some depth. This is far and away the deepest I've seen the linebacking position in my 3 years here. And so you feel good where it's at. And Bam Martin Scott could be a big part of that, especially, even if it's just in pass rush situations. But Bam Martin Scott also made some plays in the run game in November. All around a really good final month for Bam Martin Scott. Athletic dude, you saw it, you watched him. But then he brought some playmaking ability with the athleticism, and like we said, his November was massively thumbs up. Craft beer card is back. You can spend $30 a brewery, 12 craft beer locations. You take 12, you multiply it by 30, you get $360. That's the value of having $30 to spend at 12 craft beer locations. How much does the craft beer card cost me, Tara? I know that's what you're asking. $79. $360 value for $79. If you dig craft beer in any way, shape, or form, this is a deal. Well, we call it a sweet deal. I don't use that term, but we do as a company. So go to 1075thegame.com, click on Sweet Deals, and snag yourself a craft beer card for only $79, and then go enjoy yourself. Have fun. Craft away. Craft away. We'll come back. Firehouse subtext of the hour. We'll get to it, 803-404-6100. Talking about our Twitter X poll that we have up about the Carolina football program and how relevant do you think it is at this time. So that's coming up next. Halftime show, Terry Ford, we're rolling. Tyler and Dave, once they finish stuffing their faces, will be here, which I was thinking about this. They might not show up. We might not have them back at all today. Free food. Think about like at your work, whenever you do the free food. Because I remember meetings, we always have to have free food, right? Because nobody wants to go to a meeting, like a big staff meeting, a big company meeting, and you don't get free food. That's kind of like, hey, we're going to bring you to this meeting, and since we're going to bring you to a meeting, we're going to feed you. Because that's kind of the pull sometimes. Hey, I'm going to go to the meeting and get some free food. So we'll see what happens if Tyler and Dave even show up. We'll come back. Firehouse subtext the hour, 803-404-6100. That is next on the halftime show right here on the game. Bum, ba, bum, ba, bum, 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 ba, bum, ba, bum. Halftime show. Terry Ford Gledge going to be hanging as we cook this sucker up until 3 on the game. Then a post-game show. Jay taking some days off. Slacker. Elijah will be posted in here, rolling from 3 to 6 on the post-game show. On the game today, tomorrow, and Friday. And then Jay will be back on Monday. All right, so our Firehouse sub text of the hour on our text line 803-404-6100. Before we get to the text of the hour, because we really do, we want to hear what you think. We put Twitter polls up for that reason, obviously. But this one's interesting, and again, I want to give Tyler full credit for this one. In terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? Very relevant. Monetarily relevant. Somewhat relevant, irrelevant. Somewhat relevant leads away at 43%. Irrelevant at 34%. Very relevant, only 4%. So we then say, hey, hit us up on the text line and give us your thoughts as well. If you go on Twitter, go for it. Vote. Leave a comment. Or you can let us know what you think on the text line. This is from Chad. I believe we are somewhat relevant, but we don't get much attention from the outside media, even little talk on the SEC network. Yeah, I mean, I think the SEC network is what I want to focus in on, because, national media, the focus, again, 2 years ago, the wins over Clemson, Tennessee, national media was focused. Spencer Rattler shows up, national media is focused. You get some 5-star recruits, national media is focused on you. But when you go 5-7, the national media doesn't focus unless you're like, oh my God, what happened to Notre Dame? They went 5-7. Ohio State went 5-7. The world's going to end. Alabama went 5-7. Everyone's going nuclear in Tuscaloosa. The SEC, South Carolina doesn't get the love on the SEC network that you would like. And, we run Paul Feinbaum on our sister station here, ESPN 1320. You don't get a ton of love on there, but to be fair, that show is kind of built around certain programs, so certain callers from certain fan bases can come on and, do their thing. But the best way, obviously, to get more love and more run on these networks is to be consistently really good. Let's face it, if the SEC network focused more on women's basketball, you'd hear a ton about South Carolina, because, again, it's the best women's basketball program in America right now. So that's really the key to this, to get more media attention, is to be more consistently better at football. And Shane's going into year 4. Last year, if you go by record, it's a step back, right? You go from, 8-5 to 5-7. Yeah, that's a step back. You won 3 less games, didn't go to a bowl game. But the recruiting was a top 20 class. And, we were talking about this during the pregame show. And this isn't to make an excuse or give anybody a easy road to go or whatever. It's the SEC. You're hired, unless you're at Vanderbilt, to win. That at the end of the day, you are hired to win. And if you don't win over a period of time, the next guy's going to get hired to win. No matter how much you like the coach, no matter how, fun the coach might be or nice his family will be or what, none of that matters. At some point, you got to post W's. Or you'll be the ex-coach of whatever program. When Shane Beamer took over, the win probabilities, if you look at Vegas numbers, South Carolina exceeded for the first 2 years. Winning 7 games, winning 8 games. Last year, South Carolina pretty much was right around what the projections were. Now, is that acceptable? No, of course not. Shane Beamer, you saw what Shane Beamer did in the offseason, right? Wasn't acceptable. Changed some pieces in the coaching staff. Obviously, aggressively attacked the portal. The recruiting class, again, top 20. So Shane's action showed you that last year wasn't acceptable to him. He said it out loud many times on shows here when he's been popping on. So me saying it's not acceptable is not me just saying it's unacceptable. The coach didn't think it was acceptable either. But when you're kind of retooling a program, and you know where it was at the end of the Muschamp era, eek. you're going to have a year, right? If you have this year to start, let's say you go 5-7, then you go 8-5, and then you fall back to 7-6. It's not nearly what happened last year. Last year was that year, and usually you expect that year in year 1 or 2. But you got it in year 3, and yeah, there were a lot of injuries across the offensive line. And I'm sure if you asked Shane, he probably would have went about the offseason differently going into last year. But the injuries on the offensive line really caused a bad domino effect. And the fact that you didn't have playmakers coming off the edge or consistent playmaking really on the first 2 levels of the defense. You had some problems covering the slot receivers. So there were things last year that caused a 5-7. You didn't have guys when you needed to make plays in games that made plays. You just didn't have and then of course the Florida game, you don't blow that lead. You go 6-6, go to a bowl, and maybe you're 7-6 again or whatever. But 5-7 left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. Do I think that means the program's going backwards? No, I wouldn't say that at this point at all. I think that you had the blip. You just can't have more blips. You can't follow 5-7 with another 5-7 or worse. Then there's conversations coming up, right, about the direction of the program. But I don't think it's going in a bad route. I think last year was a bump. You just don't want any more bumps. All right, it's a halftime show. Terry Ford, glad you could be here. Tyler and Dave are stuffing their face. One might come back down one day or not. We roll into hour 2 with football here on the halftime show. Halftime show. Terry Ford Ledge going to be hanging as we run till 3 here on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. We'll start off with some Spencer Rattler stuff. We talked earlier in the noon hour about Rattler, number 99 on Mel Kiper's big board. A lot of projections of Rattler going in the 3rd round, Rams, Broncos. So let's start off with Shane Beamer at the Midlands Welcome Home last night, talking about Spencer Rattler and how he made himself NFL ready here in Columbia.
I think being exposed to this system, and nothing against the system that he was in before, because obviously they've been dynamic in that system with Lincoln, but he prepared himself as being a part of this system. You're in a system that's more pro style, if you will. So I think when he has to call a play in the huddle, or spit out an NFL play call, or whatever else, change protections, it's not the first time. It won't be the first time he's done that. And not that he didn't do it at Oklahoma, because we did some of that. It's just a little bit more pro style, if you will, right, wrong, and different. So that for one. And then I think just the adversity he went through the last couple seasons, how he handled it, and how he continued to just come back week after week and perform. And he was steady, he was consistent, and I know that's resonated with a lot of those NFL teams.
I mean, yeah, the style of offense, obviously more pro style than what Lincoln Riley runs. And I mean, Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks, it's going pretty well in the NFL draft for those guys. And obviously Caleb Williams will go number 1 to the Bears. But in terms of system of offense, yeah, it's more pro style here at South Carolina. But I think even the bigger thing that Shane brought up was how Spencer Rattler has handled the ups and downs with his 2 years here in Columbia. Beginning of year 1, there was struggles throwing the football, the passing game in general, not just Rattler. There were times Spencer Rattler tried to do too much, tried to make too big of a play, always big play hunting, would make a throw, he'd drop back and go, oh, there's 3 defensive backs. They're all surrounding my receiver, and they got my receiver handcuffed. I'm going to throw it to my receiver. Watch me sling it. You didn't see that as much in year 2, but in year 1, especially early on, you saw Spencer Rattler trying to do too much. And, made some questionable decisions with the ball. And he was in an offense, quite frankly, that really was an offense that didn't make a lot of sense under Marcus Satterfield. Then the offense got streamlined later in the year, and Rattler went crazy. Had the huge game against Tennessee, big game against Clemson, especially that second half against Clemson, the comeback. Then got a new offense with a new offensive coordinator in Dow Loggins. And Loggins settled down some of those gunslinger aspects of Rattler's game. Rattler, to me, was a better decision maker last year, smarter with the ball. And, remember, last year, Rattler's running for his life from like the snap of the first game against North Carolina. Tar Heels had 9 sacks, about 500 million pressures. Offensive line was a problem on and off all year. Rattler dealt with it. Receivers were hurt. Lost Juice Wells, lost Amarian Brown. I mean, Leggett was even hobbled a bit in the middle of the year. No running game to speak of. And Rattler still put up some good numbers. Also, what's even more impressive is how he handled all this stuff for the last 2 years. No finger pointing, no blame anywhere. Just handled his business. Good teammate. You watch him on the sidelines talking to players. We had him here multiple times, with Wes and Chris on the Garnet Trust Hour. We brought him into production studios to record stuff for NIL. Just solid. Really solid. Carried himself well, handled himself like a pro. On the whiteboard, I think he probably kicked it at the combine in the pro days. And then the stuff from, and I am tired of talking about this. That Netflix special when Rattler was a teenager that people still talk about. I read it in scouting reports about Rattler. He was a kid. He was a teenager. Jeez, enough of that. Wow. How would you like to have stuff brought up that you did when you were 17 and you're now like 23, or even now in your life? I'm a lot older than 23. I don't want to hear about what I did at 17 because I'm not that dude. I wasn't that dude at 23. I was still a knucklehead, but I was a different knucklehead at 23. But the guy Rattler is today, from what we've seen here close up when he's been here with us, and what you hear from the coaching staff, what you hear from teammates, that's not the kid in the Netflix documentary. It just makes me laugh of the absurdity of that continuing to come up. But that's the danger of what we do today with all this access and cameras and reality TV, which I go wink, wink into the camera, wink, wink. Because, someone following you around with cameras all day, you can make, hey, that's your reality, right? You can just be you and live your life normal with a Spike, with a handheld 5 feet behind you. Or some cat on a crane camera, recording your every move. That's natural, and you can act natural like you really do. You won't play to a camera at all, will you? No, not at all. And it's still coming up. I love Dane Brugler's stuff on The Athletic. He has this thing called The Beast. It's the draft Bible, right? There's capsules of pretty much every draftable player. And Rattler says about that bleeping Netflix documentary. Honestly, and I remember when Austin Stogner was here, Rattler's first year, he transferred with Rattler from Oklahoma, and of course there was a thing, Rattler at Oklahoma, bad teammate, what was he like? Blah, 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 blah. And Stogner was like, he's a great teammate. Players at South Carolina, he's a great teammate. Stogner even said at Oklahoma when things were going sideways, Rattler became a backup. I mean, obviously Rattler didn't like it, but he wasn't the kid in the Netflix video or the Netflix documentary. So I like what Shane said there. I really did. Because I think how Rattler handled himself off the field, because those question marks follow Rattler since that Netflix documentary, I think that stuff can be squashed with the visits on pro days, with the way he handles himself with the media, the way he's going to handle himself in interviews, the combine, all that stuff. I will continue on the Spencer Rattler trip here. Jake Crane from the Daily Sports Wire was riffing on Rattler, and he had a couple of things to say about Spencer Rattler. We'll start with how Rattler's maturity will help him on the NFL level. I'm going to grab this one right here. Here's Jake Crane.
But I think what separates Spencer Rattler in the grand scheme of things is his growth off the field. To be honest, I wasn't a fan of the way he acted out of high school and while he was at Oklahoma. He seemed to be a prisoner of the moment, and he would dictate his leadership on whether it was going good or whether it was going bad. He seemed like more of a me guy than a we guy. And we know that a lot of young people are like that, but not all young people can change. And ever since his transfer to Coach Beamer in South Carolina, he's not only handled adversity, he's overcome it. Now, you could make the argument that he was one of the most important individuals to his team's success in the country, and not just because he played quarterback. Now, he could have shut it down or made excuses with no protection or a bad run game, but that's not what he did. He led. He took the blame, and you could see it on the field as well. He knew when to get on a guy, and he knew when to tell someone to keep their head up. There's a big difference. Now, a lot of guys act like great leaders, but deep down, they really aren't when the cameras and coaches aren't around. We all know those guys. Some are natural-born leaders, and that's great. But to me, the best leaders are the guys who transform into it. And that's what Spencer Rattler has done. And when a guy has his ability physically and a newfound mental makeup, they can be awfully dangerous on Sundays, no matter where they get picked.
Yeah, I mean, I think that watching him closely here, off the field as much as on the field. And look, I get it. He's going to go in the third round. Not saying that's awful. I can't believe they're doing it. No, I get it. I get why Rattler's going in the third round. Because I feel like that's where he'll go. Could he go in the second? Yeah, he could sneak up in the second. Could he fall to the fourth? I guess, yeah. I just feel like third round's the sweet spot, so I'm going to stick with it. He goes in the third round. I understand why. But I also think that what we've seen here for 2 years and what we've got a chance to see here behind the scenes even, I think he's got I think he's got a legit shot. Like I said last hour, if he lands with the right team in the right situation, he's got a legitimate shot to be starting quarterback in the NFL. He's got all the arm talent in the world. Dude can throw it everywhere, every angle. I mean, his ability to throw the football is special. And I think a lot of these other things that were looked at as a problem, I think those things, like Jake Crane said, have been transformed, to be quite honest. I really do. So that was good stuff there with Jake Crane talking about Spencer Rattler and how he's transformed himself from that Netflix documentary when he was a kid. So, all right, good stuff there. And, like we said, Rattler, again, looks like, if you look at the mocks, I've looked at about 1 billion of them, looks like around a third-round guy. And Xavier Legette, late first round, early second round with those two guys. We'll continue football here in the 1 o'clock hour. Interesting little thing going on with the group of 5 schools we want to get into regarding playoff. That's coming up as we yip into that. Football sponsored by our friends at Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the halftime show on the game. Do not forget, we are also not just here. We are also in Florence at 100.3 the game, or 100.5 the game, I should say, Myrtle Beach 100.3 the game, and here in Columbia 107.5 the game as well. An early game will be tomorrow at the Chamber of Commerce Golf Tournament, broadcasting live 6 to 9. Bill will be hanging out there before the tournament gets kicked in at Fort Jackson. So listening for the early game at Fort Jackson at the Chamber of Commerce Golf Tournament, 6 to 9 a.m. We'll come back. What's the group of 5 doing? I kind of don't blame them. We'll get into that next. Halftime show. Terry Ford up until 3. Tyler will be back soon on the game. Eight 803-875-MENS. That's the number for the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. We've been talking about it for a couple years here now. We get older. It's what it is. I know, a shocker. Newsflash. You're a guy, as you get older, you lose testosterone. And sometimes that can lead to your sleep gets screwed up. You start getting weaker. Your bounce back from workouts stinks. You can't remember things like you used to. You have a lack of life drive, sex drive, professional drive, personal drive. You just have a lack of driving anywhere. You want to drive your butt to the couch. And like we said, it could just be low testosterone. But you don't talk to anybody because you're a guy. Well, talk to Dr. Dan and his staff at the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Set up a free, confidential consultation. If the folks at the Men's Clinic do think it's low T, they'll put you on a specialized program for you to get back to being you again. Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. We are rolling football in the 1 o'clock hour here on The Game, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Terry Ford, now where I belong, the hell out of the producer studio.
All right, I got a mess to clean up in here, so
It's
bear
not
with
pretty.
me.
It's not pretty, dude.
Why
Just
is
going to let you
everything-
know.
well, why is there maple syrup on everything?
Yeah, we can't speak of that right now. That'll be on the After Hours podcast. By the way, I noticed something because I was looking at the camera. Look, I got to switch the camera. Hold on. Just
There you
talk.
go.
Do something. Make yourself
right.
useful.
So we're watching Terry switch the camera so you can watch us on The Game TV, sponsored by Shepherd's Glass and our friends over at Integrated Media.
Perfect. Good job. The funny thing is like the camera it gets you like spot on.
Yeah, totally.
I'm standing, I don't sit when I do this.
Sure.
So what you got of me is like, you got my shirt.
Yeah.
And all you could see in the other room was obviously the shine off my bald head. And you couldn't see, you just saw my shirt.
Yeah.
And then a little spot of like, shine. Like, wow, is that sun? Yeah. No, it's my head. So it was really, I just caught a quick look of it. I'm like, wow, that looks really bizarre.
It's a different world over here.
All right, so Tyler's back. He had knocked down some food in the big old office party. It was crazy up there.
Yeah, we all talked about you.
Yeah, well, that's what the meeting was about. Who's not here? Ford. Okay, good. We're all going to go around the room and say we can't stand about him. Let's do it.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's why this took so long. No, so, all right, football. And I think you brought this up. I don't know if you got to it or not this morning, but I like what the group of five is doing.
Oh, I did too. I'm on board with it.
If you have not heard this, Group of Five administrators have had preliminary discussions in recent months about a G5 only postseason playoff or even wide-scale G5 realignment with the involvement of a private equity. I love this because, look, you do have a spot in the college football playoff. I'm not telling you to flip the bird to the college football playoff, but what I'm saying is this. You get your one in, right? You're getting your one in. They're giving you a solid.
They threw you a bone.
Take it.
Yeah.
But after you get your one in, take care of you. Don't sit around here waiting for the breadcrumbs from the power conferences. Go be proactive and make something for yourself.
Sure.
I like the idea. Then after your one goes away, go away to the college football playoff and do us proud. And then you have your own playoff and even maybe a realignment, bring in an equity firm, find a way to generate your own revenue. Because you and I were talking about this morning. In theory, the group of five is getting more money, but they're getting less percentage of the pie.
Yeah, so in the previous deal with the college football playoff, they were getting a 22% share, and that's across all of Group of Five. So all those Group of Five schools were splitting that money. This time around, they got 9%. Now, the money went up. They're up to $1.3 billion, but the effective percentage they got cut by more than half this time around. And again, we know the SEC and the Big Ten. Basically, the chunks that the SEC and the Big Ten took away, most of that came from the Group of Five.
Right, and so you look, if dopes like us can realize what's up, the really smart people that are involved in the group of five, they know what's going on. They know basically that the power conferences, look, we're just giving you something.
Sure.
Because we need you around for whatever reason, and we're going to give you a spot in the playoff. Besides that, do us a favor. Go sit at the kids' table and leave us alone.
And I think Chris Vanini of The Athletic had the perfect quote in his article from an anonymous athletic director from the Group of Five that says, we're taking some leadership here to control our destiny so that Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey don't make that decision for us. Because let's face it, when the SEC and the Big Ten started collaborating, that's the reason they were able to pull this big deal off by getting more money than anybody else. They're out there looking out for themselves, obviously, and they're barely acknowledging the ACC and the Big 12. You think they give a crap about what the Group of Five is doing or if they're included in the playoff?
Right.
Of course not.
They don't care. You're right. They don't care about the ACC. They don't care about the Big 12. Why would they care about the American Athletic or the Sun Belt or, Conference USA? They don't care. They care about, and they should, because this is the world we live in.
Yeah.
They care about the SEC and the Big 10.
Well, you ask them, hey, Greg Sankey, should the Group of Five be in the college football playoff? Is that going to make me more money?
Right. Well, remember, Greg Sankey wants to take the mid-majors out of the college basketball tournament.
Yeah. But which, again, from his perspective, I get it. Like, we don't want that necessarily, but from a pure business standpoint, 100% makes sense.
Because Greg Sankey's hired to, and I'm going to do a multiple choice with you real quick. A, look out for the interest of the mid-majors and the Group of Five, or B, look out for the interest of the SEC.
Be the SEC.
So that's all he cares about. And he should be looking at it from that prism.
And by the way, very successful in doing so.
He's been really good at it.
Tony Petitti's done a good job in the Big Ten so far, cleaning up that mess that the last guy left behind.
That guy, man. Okay, so you know how if you go to the you get a tour of like the White House and there's like portraits of all the presidents.
Yeah.
If they did that in the Big Ten offices, is there a portrait of Kevin Warren?
It is, but it has the little devil horns and the teeth are colored in. And it's got like an eye patch on it.
I was thinking, or do you put like the clown nose on him and everything? Yeah, just graffiti's written there and God. So I like this idea. Multiple administrators from the G5 conferences, the American Sun Belt, Mountain West, MAC, Conference USA, told The Athletic that former college NFL coach Derek Dooley has been the salesman on behalf of a private equity firm or firms making contact with the schools. The administrators were granted anonymity to discuss sensitive matters, made it clear that nothing is imminent, and they haven't been presented with any numbers yet. But the conversations are more real than they've ever been. Dooley did not respond, which I get it, he should not at this point. And you and I were discussing this. If you take that time from the end of the season and the end of the conference championship games until the college football playoff starts, that window,
Yep.
if you're the group of five, make that yours.
Yep.
And put your playoff there and put your selection show there and all that other stuff. To me, now you own it, right? And you're going to get TV ratings and eyeballs, and you might be able to generate more revenue if you go that route.
So just kind of spitballing here, let's just use this year's calendar as an example where the championship games for the conferences will be played on December the 7th. The first round of the college football playoff will not be until December the 20th. You have 2 total weeks there. Let's say it's an 8-team college or group of 5 playoff. You play the 4 quarterfinal games, effectively the weekend of the Army-Navy game. Play some on Friday, play some on Saturday as well. Still give Army-Navy their slot or whatever.
Sure.
It would work that out some kind of way. Then you have semifinals probably sometime within that next week. Maybe that's the lead-in to the college football playoff, their semifinal game or their first-round games. And then that weekend after January the 1st, when there's no college football on that weekend, you play your national championship for the group.
There
of
you
5.
go. And you have the spotlight.
Yes.
It's you. And to me, that would be the perfect way to go about this. And the thing about there's some administrators that remain skeptical about private equity interest. Because, look, we all know the good and the bad of private equity
Sure, but
firms.
it's involved in every other sport.
And you've got to understand, for the good and the bad, you know what they bring?
Money.
Dollars.
A lot.
They
What?
bring dollars.
I mean, Florida State was flirting with that idea, trying to leave the ACC. I mean, they were literally courting these equity firms, even looking at, the Saudi Public Investment Fund, like, hey, who can give us the dough to pay this exit fee?
I mean, or like my kid would say, they bring bags.
Yes, they do. They bring
Lots
the
of
cheddar.
bags. And look, many businesses, what's that old dumb saying that business makes for strange bedfellows or whatever that goofy thing is?
Something like that.
A lot of people have to hang out with folks that, after they talk to them, they have to go gargle.
Sure.
But you know what? It's called business.
I say you don't always have to feel good about yourself, and especially with the trajectory of where NIL is going, like group of 5 schools can't stand on a leg compared to what these Power 5 schools. A lot of Power 5 schools can barely stand on the leg that they have on the NIL front. What do you think that you think the fan base at Temple is going to be able to pony up the dough to continue to get good athletes up there? No.
No. I mean, Memphis just got some love from FedEx, but that's few and far between.
That is, and I really think that's going to kind of set the standard in a lot of ways for where we see a lot of things going, where you get one of these big corporate partners say, hey, you give us, because think about the millions of dollars in advertising that FedEx pays every single year across sports, across television, all that kind of stuff. Hey, $5 million to the University of Memphis. We're going to spread it out across all sports. And again, is that going to solve every problem? It's not, but at least gives you a baseline what you can go off of.
Right. I mean, we were talking about this when Jay was here with us. We were questioning out loud why this hasn't been happening with these corporate entities. Why aren't the universities reaching out to these corporate folks about giving NIL money or putting together or the NIL collectives? Why aren't you reaching? I mean, instead of asking, Jimmy and Sally to pony up $50 a month, why aren't you going to hit the corporate entities?
Well, and I think about it from this perspective too, and we've seen just about every professional sports league, with the exception of the NFL, embrace this of advertisements on jerseys. So
sure.
if Firehouse Subs wanted to be the official partner of South Carolina Athletics and they got a patch on the football jersey, think of the exposure and think of the, brand recognition you'd have with that in addition to the fan loyalty. This is something we talked about last week that, yes, you have passionate NFL fans, but there's a different level of loyalty when it comes to college sports. If Firehouse Subs was sponsoring South Carolina football, I guarantee you their sales and ratings around here would go through the roof because people are like, you're loyal to my program, so I'm going to be loyal to you.
Yeah, I mean, I just think, and of course you can set up to where it's a donation and
Sure.
there can be a tax write-off and all these, because all these NILs are quote-unquote wink-wink nonprofits anyway.
Yes.
So I feel like that's where it's going. But for every Memphis in a mid-major or a G5, you brought up Temple.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, Texas State. What's the NIL budget happening there?
I got like $3 in my pocket. Right about that.
I was going to say, we got some really cool, we got some Taco Bell gift certificates. I mean,
Sure.
And look, I love Taco Bell.
Just, these are expired.
Yeah.
Don't bring attention to it.
Can't use it. This isn't for this town. These are for somewhere else. So I think Group of 5, go for it.
Sure. Why
Go
not?
for it. Don't sit around at the kids' table taking leftovers.
And here's my thing. Eventually, the Power 5 is going to break away.
Sure.
They're going to go do their own thing, whether that's in 2 years or 5 years. Are you prepared to do your own thing when that happens? You may as well go ahead and start organizing it now.
Ready? Here's the term, proactive.
Yes.
Something the NCAA has never been. Go be proactive, Group of 5. Or you can listen to the game in a variety of ways. You can get our app. Just go to iTunes, Google Play Store, 107.5 The Game. You search, you find it, download, listen to us anywhere. Also, if you're sitting around and you want to watch a bunch of guys talk about sports, the Game TV, you just jump onto YouTube, and it's at Game TV Radio is the official little handle. So you can watch us, you can listen to us anywhere, our app and the Game TV. We'll pop back in here. NFL draft is coming. We'll talk to that, and we'll spin back, though. Here's some more Shane Beamer comments from the Midlands Welcome Home as Shane discusses a bunch of different topics on the road. That's coming up next. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the Game.
Welcome back into the halftime show. It's Outhead Terry Ford along with you on this beautiful Wednesday here in Columbia. It is indeed the 1 o'clock hour, so that means football, and more football. Coach Beamer last night out at the Welcome Home event here in the Midlands, and I know you've probably heard more than you've maybe even cared to hear from Coach Beamer in the past week with his presser last week. He was on Carolina Calls talking about the game after the spring game on Saturday night. But, anytime Coach Beamer speaks, we listen because, football kind of drives things around here.
Yeah, a little bit. And look, and that's the one thing. And look, right now, I get it. Shane's first 2 years, everybody was love, 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 love. After last year, you get a part of the fan base, it's like, well, what's this 5 and 7 stuff? I get it. But the one thing I like about Shane Beamer is he understands the landscape of his place in college football as a head coach, especially in the SEC.
Sure.
He's on this tour. He's stopping everywhere, talking to everybody. Media's there. And it might be the same answers he said in 5 other places, but those people are there to meet him, talk to him. He understands how this goes. You shake hands, you kiss babies, all that other stuff. That's the reality of the world today when you're a college football coach. Look, we joke about Saban all the time, right?
Sure.
Nick Saban was out. Nick Saban was, remember he had the stuff he said about Jimbo Fisher? He was like a Rotary Club or something.
Yeah.
Nick Saban understood what was up.
Do you think Nick Saban wanted to spend his Thursday nights at the Tuscaloosa Touchdown Club? No. But did he do it? Yes.
Yes. He got it. Nick Saban had all those fantastic recruiting classes.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think if he's some crabby old dude, the guy that's screaming at clouds and get off my lawn, do you think he's getting those recruits?
No.
Not at all. I think the funniest thing ever is when I found out the joke that he liked, that he said to all of his players.
That's, that was good.
To hear Nick Saban, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can just Google Nick Saban joke to his players.
We're not allowed to tell it on here.
We can't do that one here.
But I could totally see him doing that,
But
though.
that's the funniest part. Most people don't.
And imagine hearing it from for the first time.
Oh, my.
If you've only ever known him to be that, either the really crabby guy or the really polished, guy that goes and speaks at the meetings and stuff like that. To hear him say that, you're like,
whoa.
Coach.
A sense of humor?
Did your grandson tell you that joke or something?
They say the credit, people credit Marlon Humphrey when Marlon Humphrey played
That's right.
at Alabama.
Yeah, I can see that.
To be the one giving him that term that he loves so much, that he's turned into a joke all the time.
I envision him just scrolling Twitter, at all those type of jokes and just laughing his head off.
Just dying. Oh, I never thought of using it there before. Okay. And so that's the thing. This guy is relatable.
Sure.
He talks to the fan base. If there's any coach that could say, screw you to the Tuscaloosa Touchdown Club, it could be the guy with all those rings.
Sure.
But Saban gets it. So circle back around to, Shane is doing the things you need to do as a football coach.
Yeah.
He is. He understands and he gets it. And the recruiting, again, look, man, I could not be a college football or basketball coach to save my life. 365, 24/7, you're recruiting.
The money obviously is good, but what life do you have?
Yeah, look, I get it. Look, I don't feel sorry for anybody because their bank account's good, but just the constant recruiting, the constant being on, the constant, your life, your livelihood is dangling in the hands of 18 and 19-year-olds.
Well, and think about it from the perspective of, and Coach Beamer talked about it last night. We'll get to this in a second, but the perspective of what you're having to do after having a month of spring practice, having a spring game, getting an idea of where your team is at right now, and then you're essentially having to have these one-on-one meetings with players to make sure you retain at least most of your roster, so you're not having to say, well, crap, there goes 3 or 4 of the guys that thought were going to be highly productive this year.
Yeah, it's like you recruit your own people as much as you recruit the transfer portal and high school and JUCO. And
right.
So Shane, what I'm trying to say is Shane is out there.
Yeah.
And he is available. Look, the guy before him wasn't.
He's watching film.
Right. And there was complaints about that. Now I'm starting to, because again, when you're 5 and 7, people are complaining. That's what they, now it's like, hey, why is that guy running around talking to everybody? Go coach football, watch some film.
There's a honeymoon period with every coaching hire. There's a period of time where you can do no wrong, and everything that you do is, even if you're not winning just yet, it's like, man, I like what this guy's about. I like what he stands for. I like what he's bringing to the program, the energy and all that kind of stuff. But the second that period ends, people say, "What's he joking about? Why is he like we lost that? Why is he smiling in the press conference when we just lost on Saturday?"
That joke that was funny 2 years ago
Yeah.
ain't funny now.
Oh, the videos that come out on Twitter of the social media content. They did the Sopranos thing before the season 2 years ago. That's fantastic. If you're doing that before opening up against Old Dominion, why aren't you focusing on football? X's and O's.
Well, it's funny.
You should have been practicing instead of doing this.
Gunner talks about he doesn't want any more videos.
Yeah.
Bill's on the air now going, no more videos, just go win games. I don't need to see any more videos.
Now, does making a video for Twitter take away from your preparation for the game? It doesn't.
No, not at all. But when you're 5-7, yeah, it does.
Well,
ready? Less Twitter videos and more winning.
It's kind of one of those things like when you're having a really bad day, and let's say you're walking around Walmart and you see somebody smiling, you're like, "The hell's that guy happy for?"
Yeah, quit smiling.
Quit smiling.
I'm
having a bad day.
Here. That's right. My day sucks, so I don't need to see you're having a good day.
Exactly.
All right, so here's Shane at the Welcome Home Midlands talking about the defense. Again, it's a spring game. You don't want to make too much of it. But Shane talking about his optimism for the defensive side of the ball in 2024.
I think just another year in the system for a lot of these guys. It's year 4 being in our defensive system, terminology, so now they can not just know what they're doing. Some of these guys, they can now understand what everybody's doing around them. If I'm a linebacker, I understand what the secondary is doing and the D-line's doing and why. And you're able to do that when you're not trying to figure out what you're supposed to do. You're able to kind of figure out everything conceptually, which is the ultimate goal. So being more comfortable in the system. And then just, I think, with the added depth and athleticism we have, y'all saw us Saturday night. There's no doubt we're deeper and we're more athletic at linebacker. We run better. Those guys are making plays all over the field. I mean, you talk about Saturday night, Kamara, he had 2 or 3 tackles where he's supposed to be blocked and he just beats the blocker to the ball and makes a one-on-one tackle. A lot of stuff like that. So that'd be one. The depth up front on defense has been, I don't want to say a surprise, but a welcome addition to our team, without a doubt. And, I know there's great excitement. Guys like DQ and the rest of our guys on defense, there's great excitement about how good we could be defensively.
And we watch, again, you can't make too much of a spring game again. You
Sure.
can't do that. But the defense looked faster, looked more athletic, deeper, guys who have some type of resume or were highly rated recruits coming out of high school who just need a second chance, whatever the case is.
Right.
It looks like this defense has the opportunity to be much better than they were, definitely for the first 2 months of last year.
Yeah, and again, the level of expectation the bar you have to get over from last year is pretty low. Again, in the season a lot better than the first 2 months of the season, but to be improved from a year ago isn't that hard of a task. And again, when you bring in all the experience that you did, especially on your defensive front, you expect them to be to some degree better, if not marginally better.
And again, we'll see moving forward, but you feel pretty good about where your defense is at this point. All right, ready?
Knock on wood.
Reggie Bush there? Reggie Bush home? What's up? We brought you something. Here's your Heisman. We're going to get into that top of the hour. Reggie Bush is getting his Heisman back. Up next, though, we're going to check out our Firehouse sub text the hour, 803-404-6100, and an excellent Twitter X poll that I wish I would have thought of, but Tyler thought of and popped up, and we want to get back to that about how relevant you think the South Carolina football program is. All that's coming up. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're just hanging here till 3 on the game. Excuse me, I'm finishing my blueberry cookie. Oh my gosh.
Right? Blows your mind.
I never had a blueberry cookie in my life. It's phenomenal.
Now
I
I'm
want
gonna
more
be-
blueberry cookies.
I'm going to be thinking exclusively about blueberry cookies going forward because, again, I'd never thought about it either.
And it's a no-brainer. Just take a hammer to a muffin,
Exactly. Flatten it out.
make a cookie.
It's fantastic.
I'm going to find out where they got those blueberry cookies. So guess where Tara's going later?
Wherever that place is.
Whatever that place is. Why is there a man just sitting and eating cookies?
Well, you're serving a fruit in for the day.
Good point. I'm all about health.
That's right.
All right, our Firehouse Sub text of the hour. Let's get to that first. 803-404-6100. What do you got there, my man?
Yeah, so going back to the Twitter poll that we referenced earlier, nameless texter weighs in reference to South Carolina football. Irrelevant in terms of winning a natty for now. Relevant in terms of being able to change the playoff landscape by playing lots of good teams with the option of pulling upsets, especially in the 4-team era. Relevant in terms of ability to sustain success and being a big program. Irrelevant in terms of being historical power with blue blood sustainability and success. And in having these conversations, I talked about it on my show, talked about it with Wes and Chris. Now we're talking about it. I feel like I should put the caveat in, little disclaimer. I don't mean exactly right this second, how do you feel about the program? I'm talking about it overall, just kind of in general. Yes, we're coming off of a 5-7 season. You don't feel very relevant right now, but that does not mean that the program as a whole is completely irrelevant.
Right, and the idea is it's in the national scope,
Yes.
not the SEC scope or the local scope or whatever. It's national scope. Here's a Twitter X poll. In terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? A, very relevant. B, I've been messing up the word moderately all day, and I don't know why. It's like all of a sudden I had some kind of aneurysm. Moderately relevant, somewhat relevant, irrelevant. Somewhat relevant leads the way. That's not a surprise at 44%. I would think moderately relevant or somewhat relevant would be the number 1 and 2.
Yes.
It is not. Somewhat relevant is number 1. Irrelevant is number 2. Then moderately relevant, then very relevant. And I talked about this while you were eating. I don't think this program is irrelevant at all.
No.
I think programs like Cal, since Aaron Rodgers left, or Vanderbilt, obviously, or Kansas before they got good
Sure.
under Lance Leipold, those are irrelevant programs.
Yeah.
I think South Carolina, if you want me to vote, I would say slightly relevant at this time because of what happened 2 years ago, what you saw in the Spurrier era.
Sure.
They had a Heisman Trophy winner in George Rogers. I feel like it is a relevancy to the program. I don't think it's irrelevant.
There is a difference between being irrelevant and being in a dip. South Carolina currently in a little bit of a dip. That doesn't mean they're irrelevant.
Right. I think there's relevancy here. 2 years ago, they were pretty relevant in November when they knocked off Tennessee and Clemson in back-to-back weeks.
And that was my thinking in asking this question. I talked about it earlier. When you did those things, like, yes, it was a big deal, big story, and people believed that, okay, that means South Carolina can continue on with this success in next year. Obviously, that did not happen, but I keep going back, and I hate that I keep picking on Vanderbilt. I'm so sorry, but it's the low-hanging fruit here. If Vanderbilt pulls those upsets, everybody looks at it and says, that's cool. Well, they're going to go back to being 3-9 next year. You know, nobody believes that that's going to turn into anything. At least when South Carolina pulls off one of those wins, like, okay, is this the start of them getting back to where they were in the Spurrier years? Like, there's a blueprint there for success to be had. We just didn't know if it was going to be then or not. Unfortunately, again, took a step back last year, but it wasn't like you went 2-10.
Right.
Like you were right there in bowl eligibility or contending for a bowl game going into the last week of the season. It just didn't go your way.
Well, what you've seen here, and Jay and I talked about this when I first got here, Steve Spurrier showed you what you can do here.
1,000%.
And so the pieces are in place. The foundation is laid to where you can be that team, average 10 wins a year. You can be relevant in the SEC. Look, is the SEC more difficult now? Yeah, sure. You got Oklahoma, Texas. It's a different vibe, but still, you can be successful at South Carolina with the right coach.
Right.
Now you just have to find the right coach. You hope you have the right coach in Shane Beamer.
Right.
A lot of things Shane does checks the boxes of this is the right coach. But when it's all said and done, Tyler, you and I both know this. You get judged in one department, W's.
Yes.
That's it. Nothing else matters. So hopefully Shane is the guy to get South Carolina back to that type of success like you had with the ball coach. But if you have the right guy in that office, you can win here. And that's, to me, why you don't say, hey, look, everybody's got their own opinion. That's why I would personally would not call this program irrelevant.
No, I wouldn't either.
Now, can you say the same thing at Vandy?
No.
One guy did it for a few years and took off to greener pastures.
Yes.
That's it. Cal, for a bit under Jeff Tedford, was a good to above average program in the Pac-12.
Sure.
Since then, no. They are irrelevant. They sneak into a bowl game every now and then, but they do not push the needle at all anymore at Berkeley.
Well, let me flip this on its side here, and people aren't going to like this example, but Clemson has been at the top of college football for the better part of a decade. They had a bad year this year. That doesn't mean they're irrelevant. They're still very relevant in the grand scheme of things. They just had a dip.
You can have a dip. Dips are okay. When you have a dip for 30 or 40 years, that's a different thing.
Exactly.
All right, we'll get back in here. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. We'll start off with Reggie Bush. Got back a nice, cool doorstop. We'll get into that next here on the Halftime Show on The Game. halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, as we roll this sucker till 3. Then Elijah will jump in with the postgame show. Jay's off for a few days. So Elijah will carry you through this afternoon here on the game. All right, so what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions, your official NIL merch supplier. So you go to Gamecock Traditions, you buy a shirt, jersey, shorts, socks, shoe, whatever. A part of that will go toward the Garnet Trust. So, all right, what's trending at 2, we'll get to the latest transfer portal news for the men's basketball team. For that, though, Reggie Bush has got his 2005 Heisman Trophy back. The Heisman Trust announced today the formal reinstatement of the trophy to Bush amid what it calls enormous changes in the college football landscape.
Yeah, because those totally just happened like last week.
Right. I mean, here my thing is this. Should Reggie Bush get the trophy back? Yes. But we have to remember that in 2010,
Yep.
Reggie Bush knowingly broke the rules. Now, we don't have to like the rules.
Sure.
A lot of us thought those rules were stupid and silly and ridiculous back then.
Right.
But it was a rule, you broke it, and deemed by those rules you broke, you now lose your trophy. People were screaming about that back then. It's like, no, that's the rule. If you don't like it, change it. Now, thank God it's finally changed, right?
It has. In the era of not recognizing wins and trophies and stuff like that is really silly because, again, we all saw him win the trophy.
Yeah.
We all saw the fact that his parents got a house had nothing to do with the fact that he ran for 800 yards against San Jose State that one time.
Yeah, I mean, look, I recognize Reggie Bush as a Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah,
I
we
always
all do.
have.
And not recognizing him makes people recognize him more.
Right.
It's a reverse effect.
Look, I get it. The rules say you take the trophy back. I understand all that. You broke a rule. You knowingly broke a rule, and there's a punishment to breaking the rule. I totally understand all that stuff.
Sure.
But again, he never stopped being a Heisman Trophy winner. That U.S. By the way, that Southern Cal team still won the national championship to this, and always will to me.
Let me ask you a question. So, I'm thinking about this from perspective. They literally take the trophy away from him. They
come to your house.
They take it out of his hands. Like, what if he hit it? What if he did? What if he did not give them the What would they do? What if he hit it in like a secure safe that only he has the common? Like, what are they going to do?
You know what would have been fun? They're knocking on the front door. Reggie Bush is around the back door of the house with the Heisman Trophy under a blanket.
Right.
And he's running to his car. Then there's a big chase. Or even better, an OJ type chase. Where they're all following Reggie, and Reggie's got the Heisman Trophy. We don't have any guns, just for fun. He has a Heisman Trophy.
Like, I'm sure there was no struggle here. I'm sure they went.
You don't
and
think
just got
you don't think he wrestled? You don't think a SWAT team came kicking through the windows to take the Heisman Trophy back?
But like, what lengths would they have gone to get the trophy back? Like, if he was resistant and he locked every door to his house and said, "You're not getting it," you can't get the police involved in that. You know what I mean? It's like, like if he really wanted to hang on to the trophy.
Can we do that 911 call?
Sure.
911.
911. Yeah, 911. Where's your emergency?
Hi, yeah. I have to get a trophy back.
Okay. Was it stolen from you?
No, we gave it to a person.
Okay. Why do you want it back?
Because he broke rules.
Okay. Does he have to give it back?
No, but he should. Because it's the right thing to do.
Sir, you understand this is an emergency line, correct?
Just that phone. I'm picturing like SWAT units circling Reggie Bush's house. Okay, bring the trophy out now. Don't make us come in there. Bring us the trophy out and put your hands in the air.
What if he just said no? It's like, Reggie, give us the trophy back. Nah, I'm good.
You know what? Honestly, the young version of me, I might have said, screw you.
Yeah, I'm keeping it.
I'm keeping the trophy. Take me off your stupid letterhead or, take my name out of your mouth.
So what? I can't go to the Heisman Trophy ceremony in New York.
Okay. I got the trophy. You're not getting it back. I would have loved that.
Sure.
I would have loved just him going,
well,
nope, possession's 9/10 of the law.
A lot of people are saying, because again, it was last week, 2 weeks ago when OJ passed away, when the Heisman Trust tweeted out condolences to OJ Simpson's family, I think that was kind of the straw where you have to kind of look yourself in the mirror and like, we're recognizing this guy. And that was the funny thing about Southern Cal, too, because at the Coliseum, they have like the tarped off section of the stands that has like historic numbers, Heisman Trophy winners, all that kind of stuff. They could put 32 up there all day long and recognize OJ. They couldn't put number 5. And like they pretended like Reggie Bush never existed, basically.
But, well, come on. Let's look at the Reggie Bush situation, the OJ situation. Who's worse?
Well, but like that's like it's so asinine it doesn't make sense.
No, it always was. And the idea, again, of taking trophies and taking wins.
When we all saw it with our own eyes.
Right. I mean, again, I always try to look at this from the objective prism of their one thing they can do is take the trophy back because that's their the only thing they can do in their mind, right? Is it because that symbolizes something? You broke rules. You knowingly broke the rules at that time were a quote unquote big deal to people. Some people, not to me, but they were a big deal to people.
Right.
So you take the trophy. So I understand all that. I'm not going to dump on them and say I understand why they did what they did.
They want some kind of repercussion for your action. Like, hey, we didn't catch you while you were in school. We got to get something.
So we got to punish you somehow.
Sure.
But in the logical thinking world, it all looks stupid.
It does. And especially when NIL went live 3 years ago, that's when the steam for this really picked up. Like, all right, now athletes can get paid. Give him back his trophy. And if they would have done that in July of 2021, it wouldn't have been as big of a story because, like, all right, the landscape of college football's changed. They give it back. No big deal. Now they've been getting dogged about this for so long. It's become this big deal.
And what Reggie Bush's family and Reggie Bush didn't affect playing the game.
No, not at all.
He wasn't, there was nothing like, we'll give you this house if you throw a game.
Yeah.
Or if you fumble. Or whatever.
He didn't win the Heisman Trophy because he was taking PEDs or anything like that.
I mean, it's just the idea that he got benefits. His family got a really cool house. Okay. And so, like I said, when you step back and try to think of this logically, taking back the award's dumb. Wiping out the national championship is dumb. Erasing wins from a head coach is dumb. Those things don't matter. And when you try to make them matter, you look dumb.
Sure.
And even though I understand it from what the Heisman Trust, that's all they had, right, in their mind.
Sure.
But in the bigger picture, you kind of look silly because you're taking the award back. You gave it to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and here's the thing, because, I mean, it's like, what, engraved with his name on it, right? Like, what are you going to do with it? It's not like you can display it. Hey, here's the confiscated Heisman Trophy from Reggie Bush that he didn't actually win,
Ready?
according to our records.
That's really weird. On eBay, they got a Reggie Bush's trophy. This is bizarre.
Like, I don't, again, it's symbolism more than anything else.
Yeah, it really is. And I just, at the end of the day, you got the trophy back, good. Now, go back and give coaches their wins back and give national championships back and just, because none of it, it's all silly. It's just all silly.
It is. And again, it's a way for, and it's the NCAA that takes wins away, but it's a way for these entities to feel like they've done something. Because again, for the most part, whenever the Connor Stalions investigation finishes up, obviously Harbaugh's gone. All the players on this national championship team for Michigan, they're going to be long gone. And who knows what the NCAA is going to look like at that point in time. But the common thinking for years, like, all right, we're just going to vacate those wins of those national championships, even though nobody on the current team's going to have any effect on that. Like, again, it's more of just, it makes you, as the entity, it makes you feel better. Like, hey, we really got them. They have to take that banner down, and we need to get those Men in Black like mind eraser things, so none of their fans remember the championship.
It is. It's all ridiculous. It is. So Reggie Bush gets his Heisman Trophy back. Real quick, South Carolina Gamecock transfer portal news. Obviously, Jordan Butler is official now. The big from Missouri transfers into South Carolina, and South Carolina's looking for a point guard, and Dakota LeFew came in for a visit. LeFew is very highly coveted. It would be a nice get. Mount St. Mary's kid. Obviously, Mount St. Mary's to the SEC is a step.
Sure.
Might be a little bit of getting used to the neighborhood thing with LeFew. But Dakota LeFew was a nice player, but he's got other suitors.
But hasn't Lamont Paris earned the benefit of the doubt?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I think that if LeFou came in, that's a good get. Here's another one I think would be a good get, who, according to reports, is going to be visiting, I believe, Wednesday, which is today. Jameer Brickus from LaSalle. Now, Brickus averaged 14 a game, almost 5 assists a contest, 3.5 boards, and shot over 43% or 40% from three. That's a good get.
Mm-hmm.
He's a nice floor general, as noticed by the five. Only had average 2 turnovers a game, too. 5 assists a game, only 2 turnovers a contest. He can score from three, 40% from three, about 14 points a game. So when it's his time to take a shot, about 40% of his shots are from three.
All right, which you need that.
Yeah, so he's a guy that can make a three for you. You can run the offense. He can pull down a few rebounds, even though he's 5'11". So Jordan Brickus would be a nice pickup. I mean, yeah, Jameer Brickus would be a nice pickup as well. So Brickus visiting today, according to reports. LeFou has got some more visits going. You feel like that one, you got more suitors. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
For LeFou.
And look, you're not going to be able to go out there and get every guy that you were targeting in the transfer portal. But one thing that's so encouraging, and with the Cam Scott announcement last week, you obviously had Carl Murray Boyles. This past season, he's going to be around for another year. You get Butler, another in-state guy. You are making this a very attractive program to all the great talent that you have around the state of South Carolina. This is a very talent-rich state. While from a number standpoint, it may not match up to what Georgia and Texas and California and places like that are doing, but we've seen countless NBA pros come out of the state of South Carolina, and it's good to get those kind of kids staying home now.
If you can get a good percentage of the high-level ballers in the state to stay, that's really your goal. And we've seen it. You just went over it. Lamont Paris doing a pretty good job of that so far. And with the season you had last year, you build upon that through recruiting the state. I mean, there's Kerry Rich. And look, we love Kerry here. Kerry Rich, what his connections and his inroads in the, AAU and the high school community here with basketball has helped a ton to get Lamont ingrained, because again, Lamont never been South Carolina.
Sure.
Kerry Rich we said at the time was an excellent hire to get those doors open, and we're seeing the fruits of that right now. So give Kerry Rich big props too as well. So that's the latest. Brickus again would be a nice get at the point guard. You want a floor general. You want another Talon Cooper, a guy that's a pass-first point guard that's going to set the offense, and if need to make shots, or when it's his time to make shots, or when he's open, he can make shots.
Right. So
that's the latest with South Carolina basketball. All right, we will continue on with what's trending at 2 here on the game. We'll spin back. I'm gonna do this for Tyler. Big championship in wrestling.
That's right.
We're going to get to in the next segment, and also my 1 minute on the NBA. We'll do that as well. What's trending at 2? Sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. We will be back to look at a championship last night that has some local connection to it, and our 1 minute of NBA playoff talk. That's next on the halftime show here on the game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry here on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. What's trending? A former Gamecock who is now a world champion. I will hand this off to my wrestling correspondent in the field, Tyler Head. Please, sir, hit the sound.
Yeah, that's right. We got to set the scene first.
Trick shot! Trick shot! Trick shot! Booker! William Slade! The Mad Dragon! Here is your winner! The new NXT champion, Trick Williams!
Nice.
There you go.
Explain it, oh correspondent.
Yes, so Trick Williams, the former, well, not former, he was known as Matrick Belton in his time here at South Carolina as a walk-on wide receiver, has been wrestling in the WWE for about 3 years now and is in their developmental territory, which is NXT, and last night won their championship over Ilya Dragunov at NXT Spring Break. And again, I know people, and I was going back and forth with some people on the text line earlier on today that aren't into wrestling. They're like, what how do you determine who a champion is, and what does it matter anyway? If it's not the true sport type thing. To be a champion in wrestling, especially a place like WWE, you obviously have to be really good in the ring. You have to have good wrestling ability. You have to have a good character, something that people can believe in. You got to have a good connection with the audience as well. So you have to have you have to check all the boxes to be able to hold a championship belt in the WWE. And for him to do that in 3 years' time is truly remarkable.
Good for him. And you're right. I mean, it's not like they just go, okay, it's your turn to be champion.
Yeah, they don't just hand it around. Like, it has prestige. It means something.
And you got to, and you hit all of it. You've got to be able to, wrestle in some way, shape, or form in the ring. But outside the ring, you got to have the personality and charisma that can connect to an audience. And plus, you have to have enough skins in the game to where they want to develop your character, so to speak, to make you a champion.
Well, here's the thing. In wrestling, if you're a champion, you have to be able to make money for the company. If they do not think you are going to draw people in that want to buy tickets and want to watch the show, you're not going to be champion. In fact, you're probably not going to be featured a whole lot because you're not worth anything.
That's the guy, that's the jobber who gets beat.
Exactly. That's the Brooklyn Brawler.
Yeah,
the Brooklyn Brawler was a jobber.
Yes.
And he got beat in like 0.2 seconds.
All the time.
All the time. But Trick Williams, you heard the fans chanting along to his song after he won the thing. They're invested. The guy's going to be a star.
Good for him. That's it. No, it's cool. I mean, I'm happy for him. Good for him. Also, in our world of sports, got 60 seconds?
Sure. And go.
NBA, like I'll say last night, Dallas won on the road. They're actually trying to play defense. If Dallas would play defense really well to go with the offensive firepower they have, they could be scary in the playoffs, but I'll believe it when I see it in a 7-game series. If the Mavs, and they've been a lot better on defense since they made some moves and trades, but again, Luka was good defensively last night. Might have been better than he was offensively. But you still got Kyrie Irving, who could care less about defense. We'll see with Dallas, but they did get a win last night to even their series of the Clippers at 1-1. Say this really quick. People want the Lakers to be good so bad they can't stand it.
Of course.
The Lakers are mediocre. Sorry. They're just mediocre. They're going to be out quick. They're going to be moved on. Like Golden State was moved on earlier.
Sure.
The best is behind these teams as they're built right now, and this is done. Denver's going to move on. And it might be 4 games, 5, whatever. All these people trying to build up scenarios for the Lakers, please stop.
Well, there's always going to be that belief when you have one of the best basketball players of all time that, okay, well, there's always that chance, and doesn't seem to be in the case this year.
I mean, what LeBron James is doing at age 70 is unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, we've never seen a player at his age doing the things he does. Anthony Davis, when he feels like it, is a hell of a player. But they're not going to win championships. They got that one in the bubble. That's the only one they're getting as they're constructed. That's just the way it is.
Do you count that?
I do, because they've all played.
Okay.
But you know what? Do I know it was a special circumstance? Yes.
Sure. It's one of those ones that's pretty easy to forget about. Also, they won that the regular season tournament earlier on this year that I think everybody's completely forgot
But
about.
how many people cared about that?
At the time, I was actually pretty intrigued by it because it was something unique and different, but I don't think it's going to quite have the prestige that Adam Silver is hoping that it's
Right.
going to have.
And how many players you think took it seriously?
Not a whole lot. They did at least give them the incentive of the money.
Yeah.
So they weren't just playing for a trophy like, hey, there's incentive to actually
Right.
go out there and try. But yeah, there's a reason why, I've long said that the NBA regular season is probably the most meaningless regular season in all of sports. And even though you try and dress it up with a little tournament earlier on in the year, it still is,
Unless you're going to drop 30 games off of it. And finally, Phoenix got beat last night again by Minnesota. There's a lot of people who dog Kevin Durant. I get it. I like Durant. I really do. I think he's one of the best offensive players of his generation. Is he a leader to go win championships? No. Why did it work so well for him at Golden State? Because they had other leaders and Durant could just go play ball. And the Phoenix, the way the team is built, that's not a championship contender either. And they're going to get beaten this round, and everybody's going to go nuts about it. And the fact is, Tyler, they've got no draft capital. They've got no maneuverability in their cap. And what they can do, they're kind of stuck with who they are at this point. All right, there's your little NBA playoff 60 seconds.
it was like 3 minutes, but who's
Did I go a
counting?
little longer?
Yeah, it's all right.
Hey, we need a clock. I mean, start the NHL playoffs. See, I love the Stanley Cup playoffs. I don't talk about it because really most people here could care less.
Sure.
I love the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And by the way, the betting favorite's Carolina Hurricane.
I know.
So there you go.
Well, we'll have to bring Kendall on sometime to get her correspondence with the Hurricanes.
By the way, yeah, we should. We haven't had her on in a long, long time. We get her on, talk some hockey with us. A few minutes about Carolina. One other thing, real quick, and what's trending at 2. I saw this little piece of trivia
Okay.
today, and I didn't know this. I knew I could guess one, but I didn't think of the other. There are 2 professional sports franchises with the longest playoff droughts. The drought is 13 years.
Okay. I know one of them.
Go for it.
Sacramento Kings.
Nope.
No?
They were in the playoffs last year.
Oh, dang.
And
that's
this
right.
year.
They ended the longest drought. That's what it was.
Yes.
Um,
One's in the NFL.
one's in the NFL.
So think about how crappy you got to be to go 13 years without going to the playoffs in the NFL.
It's not the Browns.
Nope.
Oh, man.
Play in the biggest city in the country.
Oh, it's the Jets.
Mm-hmm.
That's right.
The other one I did not know. Buffalo Sabres in the NHL.
Wow.
They used to always be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they haven't been in the playoffs in 13 years. They hired the guy that took them to the playoffs the last time, Lindy Ruff, is back. That's where I read this. So 13-year drought, Buffalo Sabres, New York Jets.
Tough. State of New York. Well, one's in New
Yeah.
Jersey, but same difference.
Ready? Think about this too. Ready? The Carolina Panthers made the playoffs before the Jets have in the last 13 years.
That's insane.
Multiple times.
And that last appearance was the AFC Championship game
Yep.
where they went back to back.
Back to back with Rex Ryan as the head coach. And Mark Sanchez, the butt fumbler, was the quarterback. All right, what's trending at 2? Sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Man, today's what, the 23rd, 24th of April?
It's 24th.
Greatest day in the history of the world. Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK is next here on the Halftime Show on the Game. Couple things real quick before we get to the greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Baseball here on the game in Columbia and Myrtle Beach. 6:45 Friday, pregame gets underway. 3-game series with Kentucky starts on Friday, Saturday and Sunday against the Wildcats. 3:45 start on Saturday. Coverage starts at 1:45 on Sunday. Also, very cool Twitter X poll that our buddy Tyler put up today, or yesterday, I should say. Still got about a little bit over an hour left, an hour, 40 minutes left to vote. We have almost 700 votes and 3,500 views. In terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? Very relevant, moderately relevant. I told you I couldn't say moderately in the first hour of the show.
No, I did not know that.
I kept saying moderately. I was all over the place.
I can't say the place that the Malcolm Home event was last week, so I can't dog you too much.
No, I said I couldn't. Whenever I used to do commercials, I had to read commercials, I couldn't say selection. I say selection. Drove me nuts. Very relevant, moderately relevant, somewhat relevant, irrelevant. Those are the votes. Right now, somewhat relevant leads the way with irrelevant number 2. So get in your votes, and we will probably talk about that on the Firehouse Subtext of the Hour, 803-404-6100 coming up.
I figured people would be passionate about this.
Yeah, so
which is good. And again, I said this morning, you're not wrong for thinking however you want to think. If you think this program is the most irrelevant program in college football, that is fine. You can think that. I personally don't agree with it, but that's what the discourse is for.
And again, this is an opinion thing. This isn't you're right or wrong. This is just your opinion. All right, greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. NFL draft stuff on this day in 2004. Ole Miss quarterback Eli Manning was drafted by
the San Diego Chargers.
And Eli Manning played as many downs with the Chargers as I did.
Yes.
Because, again, Eli Manning was then traded to the Giants. Phillip Rivers, drafted by the Giants, became the Charger quarterback in the trade. And I think both franchises are okay with what happened because Eli Manning was part of 2 Super Bowl champion teams with the Giants, and Phillip Rivers was a really good quarterback for the Chargers. And he just was – the difference these two guys, I think Rivers is the better quarterback in the NFL, but Rivers did not play well in the postseason in his career. He just didn't. And Eli Manning did. That was the big difference. But that was one of those few times where leverage won, Chargers caved, and they made that deal, just like the Colts caved all those years ago on John Elway. There are people that think maybe, just maybe, Washington will cave on Jaden Daniels this year.
I was going to say it's a very rare thing, and to have it happen at the number 2 pick is even more unique if that were to happen tomorrow night.
I'll tell you this. If I'm Washington and I take Jaden Daniels, if I want Jaden Daniels, I'm not caving. If I'm Washington, I'm taking Jaden Daniels.
For sure.
This thing, I'd rather play for the Raiders because of Antonio Pierce. Okay, I get Antonio Pierce if you're Jaden Daniels from your time at Arizona State together, but you think that's a functional organization in Vegas? That mess? Yeah. Ready, go to your gifts. Dumpster floating down the river on fire. That's the Raiders. On this day in 1994, David Robinson scored 71 points to win the scoring title. Edged out Shaquille O'Neal. David Robinson is not talked about anymore because of Tim Duncan, obviously, in San Antonio.
Right.
David Robinson was a phenomenal NBA big, offensively and defensively. And what's even weirder was his career at Navy. Because, you can't be but a certain height.
Sure.
When Robinson came in, he was the right height and then grew and became a 7-footer.
That doesn't usually happen when you're that far along in age.
Very rare. Very rare.
Well, I don't know. He didn't have giantism, did he? Because that's when your body never stops growing.
I don't think so.
Okay. That's the only thing. Because typically you stop growing when you're, 17, 18 years old as far as height
Every
goes.
now and then you'll maybe pop a growth spurt in your late teens.
It's not common.
No, once you get about the end of high school, but every now and then you'll hear about a kid, junior, senior in high school is 5'9", all of a sudden he's 6'4".
Sure.
But you're right, doesn't happen much. On this day in 1988, you're lucky you weren't alive for this one.
Okay.
Auburn linebacker Andre Bruce was picked first overall by who?
Oh. I don't know.
Your favorite team.
The Atlanta Falcons?
Mm-hmm. Bust. Huge.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't recall being told any stories of his time with the Falcons. So that's probably not a good sign.
Bust. Gigantic bust was Andre Bruce. And on this day in 1974, Tampa, Florida is awarded the NFL's 27th franchise. Of course, Seattle got the 28th.
Yep. And they decided to throw the Bay on the end of the name.
I know.
There is no such thing as, like, Tampa Bay is not an actual, like,
No.
town.
Well, though, there are a lot of people who live in the Bay, so you want to include them.
Yeah, which that's what I've always heard is, like, you want to kind of encompass the entire area, just like the Rays. They're the Tampa Bay Rays, so they're not, in which they play in St. Petersburg.
Right, exactly. In an airplane hangar.
Yeah.
I guess that's how you're getting Tampa and St. Pete and the whole region in by calling it Tampa Bay. So, Bucks and the Seahawks didn't show up this day, but they showed up the same year together. That is the greatest day in the history of the world, sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. All right, let's spin back. Our guy, Shane Beamer, speaking at the Welcome Home Midlands festival, or festivities, I should say, last night. One cut we haven't gotten to yet is Shane doing the exit interviews. He did like 40 a day for 2 straight days. And here's Shane talking about his thoughts on letting players know exactly where they stand in the program.
And I think it's, it would be very easy for us right now to maybe not be as honest as maybe you should be in order to try and keep guys around. And I always want to be honest with guys. I tell our players all the time, Wes, that I want our guys to have a good experience here in this program. And that means being able to play. And if they're coming out of spring practice, they're not in a position where they're going to play a lot. That can change between now and the season, but I also want to be honest with them in regards to here's where you are right now, and here's what's got to change in order for you to, and here would be your role if the season started today as well. So we try and have those conversations. All these players are meeting with their position coaches individually, and then every single one of them, all 110 guys we have on our team, scholarship, walk-on, freshman, senior, you name it, they're meeting with me. So be honest and let them know where they stand, but I want them to be honest with me if there's something that they're concerned about and not happy about. I want to hear that too. And we try and do that year-round, not just in these exit meetings.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be honest with them. I mean, you just can't, because right now, the way the world is with the transfer portals and with all the things that are going on, just be transparent. You can't. You can't like shine a guy to keep him around because you think something could happen good for him later in your program. If he's not, if he's third on your depth chart, hey man, you're third on the depth chart. We love you.
Yeah.
We want to develop you and keep you, but that's where you're at right now.
Yeah, you got to be honest with him. And, if you're looking at a guy that is not going to be playing any meaningful snaps this fall, and you say, yeah, we think you can be a serious contributor on our offense, and then the fall comes around and he finds himself, third on the depth chart, then, those kind of guys, he'll obviously end up transferring soon after that.
Right.
But players talk.
Yeah.
They talk to players they know, they talk to recruits and that kind of stuff. And you don't want that reputation of like, well, he's not going to tell you the truth and he's going to, sell you a bad bill of goods and keep you around here just because he wants to keep his roster's numbers up. So I'm sure it's not easy to sit down with some of these guys knowing they're probably going to enter the transfer portal. We know Sidney Fugar is projecting to enter the transfer portal based on reporting from Wes and Chris over at Gamecock Central. But yeah, and he was a guy that, obviously came in a season ago that we knew was not going to be ready to play right away.
Right.
Coming in from Western Illinois, knew he was going to need some development. Had the size, like obviously big guy, exactly what you look for, but the mechanics weren't quite there yet, and it was going to take some time to develop. Got kind of thrown to the wolves and got pushed around quite a bit. And I think on Saturday, Dylan Stewart ran over him too in the spring game. Like he's had a rough go of it. But again, he went out there and gave it his best shot. But when you're sitting down and talking to him, I'm sure there was some element of, hey, we appreciate what you've done so far. We don't see you being a factor in the starting five as of right now. You can stay and continue to develop and maybe have something later on down the line. Or if you want to go pursue another option for what maybe is 2-3 years of eligibility, however many he has left, you can do that as well. That's up to you.
Yeah, and that's the thing you got to do because you hit it. You don't want to become the coach with the reputation of you're lying.
Yeah,
it's the last thing you want. So you just tell them the truth. And like you said, we want you to stay. We love you. We want to develop you. One day you could be very vital to our success. But right now, here's where you're at.
And there's nobody that you're sitting down with where you're just saying, yeah, you should leave.
No,
get out.
Yeah, you're not going to. No player's going to walk in. Hey, head, come on in for a minute. What? We don't want you here anymore. You got to peace out.
Yeah.
No, if you come in and work hard and you try to be the best guy you can be on and off the field and you go to class and you do all the things, they're not going to say, hey, beat it.
Well,
not going to happen.
I imagine it's the traditional compliment sandwich where you come in, you sit down, hey, here's what we like, what we've seen out of you. Mm-hmm. Here's the area of concern. Here's what could happen if you stay around, but I'm not promising you anything. You know what I mean? So, and then you leave it up to that player. If they want to stick around or they want to prove you wrong or whatever it may be, that's up to them. And they can do that and continue to keep those numbers up at whatever position, or they can go decide to enter the transfer portal, and that frees you up a scholarship to go pursue somebody else at that spot or another spot that maybe you think you need.
Because you hope, there's some, look, let's be honest, there's the hope, like you just said about scholarship numbers. You hope you bring a guy in, tell him the truth, let him know where he's at. And there's a part of you that says, well, hopefully he'll leave and I can get that scholarship.
Right.
That happens too. All right, we'll jump back in here. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour. I'm sure there's some text messages about our Twitter poll. We'll get to that. And there's an SEC program that's laying off staffers. This will surprise you which one it is. We'll get to that as we lead into the postgame show with our buddy Elijah Campbell. Jay on vacation, but we'll have Elijah rolling you 3 to 6. That is coming up here on The Game. Firehouse text of the hour, 803-404-6100. If you got a couple of them, because we got a cool little interesting little topic that we've been discussing. Tyler put out a Twitter poll. The question was, it's at 107.5 The Game. In terms of national interest, how relevant do you feel the South Carolina football program is right now? Very relevant, moderately relevant, somewhat relevant, or irrelevant. Right now, the leader is somewhat relevant, followed by irrelevant, 44% to 34%. We have, 701 votes. We have an hour and a half left. Over 3,500 folks have viewed it. I'm guessing there's a little bit of noise about this on the old text line.
There always is. Nameless texter weighs in and says, if we're going by championships, then we're irrelevant, but that's not what makes college football great. We've contributed some of the best games since 2010. And that's something that I go back to a little bit earlier that, you talk about those games in 2022. They pulled off the upset against, Georgia in 2019. They beat Alabama here in 2010. Like, those games, yes, those are still upsets, but nobody looks at those and said, oh, my God, I can't believe South Carolina did that. You know what I mean? Like, it's a program that's shown its ability to go toe-to-toe with some of the best teams in college football, not just in recent years, but over its long history.
I mean, it's just one of those things. It's a lack of consistency.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. And, again, 2 years ago, it was a nice season, win 8 games, knock off 2 top 10 ranked teams. You talked about, the Stephen Garcia-led upset of Alabama. There have been victories that have been huge, not just here or in the SEC, but nationally. And there are players going to the NFL from South Carolina. Jadeveon Clowney was number 1 overall. Again, Spurrier averaged 10 wins a year in a 5-year span. So, to me, again, the people that are voting irrelevant, again, it depends on what you want to look at irrelevant. Like you said, if you want to look at comparing national championships, okay, sure. You'd be irrelevant. You know how many schools would be irrelevant if we're just talking national championships?
Oh, 99% of them.
Ton of them would be irrelevant. So, you have one more you want to hit before we get out of here? Or is that the best one?
That's the best one for now.
All right, that's fine. We appreciate the text always at 803-404-6100 Firehouse subtext the hour. Okay. So, as an SEC school, it just laid folks off. You're like, wow, I don't see the athletic department in trouble. Must not have any money, but all the SEC has money, or I thought. What's the deal? Texas A&M is laying off a number of high-level administrators and staffers. Athletic Director Trev Alberts confirmed that to the Bryan College station Eagle yesterday. He made it clear those cuts are not related to the paying of the ginormous buyout for Jimbo Fisher. Albert addressed the downsizing of the athletic department, saying it's a reorganization related to existing and emerging threats to our business model. The people being laid off hadn't aired or been chosen for performance-related reasons. They laid off like the executive deputy athletics director and COO, deputy athletic director for external relations and business development, associate athletics director, associate athletics director for equipment. I mean, so they were like management types, but I'm guessing they can, either bring someone in without a title and pay them less to do these jobs, or they thought there was too many people in the executive level and wanted to cut the fat, so to speak.
Well, that was what my question was going to be. Like, are they eliminating these jobs, or they're just trying to reallocate the resources here?
And they're not really being clear about that. What they guess in this post is that Texas A&M is getting proactive and trimming money so they can get ready to pay players.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, again, we talk about paying players, and when the university, and I've said this before, everybody jumps up and down saying the university needs to pay players. The colleges are making all this money. Yeah, they're making a lot of money. Could they pay players? Sure, but you know where that money comes from? Their bank account.
Yeah.
So most businesses don't like to make less money.
Sure.
So what do they start doing? Laying people off and cutting sports.
Trimming the fat.
And this is coming if you truly go into a model of paying players out of the athletic department budget.
Sure.
I hope your kid doesn't run cross country. I hope your kid doesn't play a sport no one cares about at their university. I hope your young lady isn't playing field hockey. Your young man isn't playing a sport that no one cares, like fencing,
Right.
whatever, because that's gone. And,
Yeah.
and people getting laid off like this will happen.
That's, again, the unintended consequences. And I know we don't typically look too much further past what the top level sports are doing, but there's a trickle down effect of this. And that's, talking about the private equity thing a little bit earlier, if that is indeed maybe the future of college sports, that's something that could potentially save those type of sports if there's no other money coming in to be distributed to those, because again, like I said, those are going to be the first ones on the chopping block. We've seen many universities cut sports that weren't making any money, saying, all right, something's got to go. It's certainly not going to be the football program, so volleyball, field hockey, and men's tennis, sorry, see ya.
Right. I mean, there are places in this country that no one cares about college baseball,
Yeah.
or they're gone.
If you told, I don't know, Michigan, say, all right, you can either get these 10 high-level recruits or continue to have a baseball program, they're going to go for the 10 high-level recruits on football.
Yeah, I mean, their baseball program got to the College World Series a few years ago. They don't care.
Sure.
It's all about their football program. So these are the things that are going to happen. Sports will get cut. People get laid off. And I know your first thought is, Tara, I don't care. Well, you don't care, but what if it affected your household, your child, their sport got cut?
Sure.
Your job gets punted.
Yeah, we forget. These are people at the end of the
Yes.
day. These are lives being affected.
Right. There are people who are working to make a living to pay for their family. There are athletes who work just as hard as football and basketball players who all of a sudden lose their sport. So, again, if the schools start paying these athletes, which a lot of people jump up and down about, this is what's going to happen. Tyler, fine job when you finally got here from Stuff in Your Face. Good work. Elijah's in next with the post-game show. We'll do this again tomorrow. Draft day. I'm so dorking up. I can't wait.